Let's begin with the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commandments and commands us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. All right, the parsha this week is Chukat, and Chukat is the 39th reading from the Torah. The word Chukat means statute. The name is derived from the second verse of the reading. This is the statute of the law which the Lord had commanded, and that's in Numbers 19:2. Chukat represents the mysterious laws of the red heifer ceremony for the purification after contact with human death. This reading also contains the story of Moses striking the rock, the story of the deaths of Aaron and Miriam, and the wars with the Amorites. The portion concludes with the host of Israel encamping right on the edge of the Promised Land. Now, today, as we know, is Erev Father's Day, okay, the day before Father's Day. And a day when, like I said before, we allow Dad to burn whatever it is, whatever burnt offering he wants to put on the grill. And so I get to put steaks on the grill tomorrow instead of cauliflower and squash and stuff like that, and carrots and that sort of thing. All right, and it's also a day when Mom gets Dad a new tool. Did you get that? Today, no. Okay, some moms say, no, they don't do that. All right, well, you know, if you're like us, Pat used to get me a tool for, all the time. And so my garage is full of tools. Sometimes the tools are something that I can actually use. And then other times she has gotten me tools that I look at it and says, what am I going to do with that? And so I've actually some of them, there's a couple that I've never ever used in almost 50 years of being married. And so, it was just too complicated. I didn't know, but she thought, boy, that would be great if he could do that and make all of these fancy carved things for table legs and things like that. And it was beyond my scope. But now, then that's right. So if you've got a good wife, she'll buy you a tool. If you've got a really good wife, she'll let you go buy the tool that you really want and need. And so this week I needed a tool that a good floor jack for jacking up stuff and cars and trailers and stuff. And so I went in and spent a little bit more than I'd never ever had before on a floor jack because I wanted to use it more than twice before it started leaking all over the place. So I bought one and got it home and it works just fine. I went and jacked up my truck just to see if I could, and it did. So, and that's good. And so then I was out there working, cutting the grass, because everybody's coming over to the house in a couple of weeks. And so I want to make sure that it's really nice, and I wanted to chase away all of the snakes and the lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! And so we did that, and I got about half of an acre of the 2 acres that I mow done, and the lawnmower that I just spent $700, $800 on said, I quit. That's it, no mas. And so no matter what I did, I took switches apart. I had my multimeters, and I'm doing all of this kind of stuff and just checking everything, and aha, that works. And I put it back in there and then clicked turned on the ignition. Crickets, nothing. So I went back through there and I just gave up. So my Father's Day, then I finally ended up, and that lawnmower only lasted me 20 years. Goodness sake, So I got another one, and so now I spent the rest of the afternoon with a big old smile on my face, going all over the place with that new beast of a lawnmower. It was a good Father's Day. And so, but then with all of that going, grinning like that, I came in and I looked, all you could see were my glasses, just two little white holes like this. Everything else was just covered in dust. And so it was a good day. And I don't know how many water moccasins I killed with that thing, but it was good. It was good. But today I want to focus on a father figure of sorts. Aaron, was the first high priest. And he had 4 sons. And 2 of the sons disobeyed God, and they died for it. You're familiar with that story. Did the fact that 2 of his sons failed make him a bad father? No, it did not. He was loved by all Israel, and as we will see. But just because you have a kid or 2 that doesn't measure up to what you think that they should, does not necessarily make you a bad parent. Okay. Once you grow those rascals up, there's not a whole lot you can do with them after that. You leave them in God's hands. And just keep praying for them. According to Jewish tradition, Aaron was especially beloved by all Israel because he was a peacemaker. Now, he was like a family member to each person because he had made peace within the families. Rabbi Hillel used to say that, be one of the disciples of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace. And to be a disciple of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, is to be a disciple of Yeshua, the Prince of Peace. Rabbi Yeshua said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Now, one traditional teaching, Jewish teaching, about Aaron says that when husbands and wives quarrel, they would seek out Aaron. He would counsel them with words of peace and bring reconciliation to their relationship. He was so adept at making peace between the husbands and wives that he had many children named after him. Okay? And so there are thousands in Israel who are called by the name of Aaron. And if it wasn't for Aaron, then they would not have come into this world. Aaron made peace between the husband and the wife, so that when they came together, they named the child that was born after him. They named him Aaron. Okay. Another popular folklore about Aaron, it says that when 2 men were fighting, Aaron would go to the first one and say to him, Reuben, I was talking with Simon, and he was saying that he's feeling really bad about this fight you're having, and he wants to make peace. Then Aaron would go to Simon and says, hey, I ran into Reuben, and he was telling me that he's feeling really bad about the fight that you're having, and he wants to make peace with you. When the 2 men encountered each other, they would assume that the other one wanted to make peace. They would embrace and set their arguments aside. Now, perhaps this is why the psalmist says, behold, how good and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. It's like that precious oil up on the head, coming down the beard, even Aaron's beard, and coming down to the edge of the robes. That's in Psalms 133, 1-2. Now, these, did you notice this morning the song that we sang, Hine Ma Tov? That is the story there, how blessed it is for brothers to dwell together in peace. Now, these stories about Aaron remind us that we are called not only to be peacemakers, but to be peaceful people, but also to be peacemakers, a people who proactively are making peace. Being a peacemaker is one of the things that characterize being the disciple of Yeshua, and it's a characteristic of being a good father. Yeshua had a whole list of good father attributes. You know what we call them? We call those the Beatitudes. That's what Trial read this morning. And, when I was a kid, we learned that these were the Beatitudes. Those were the attitudes that you were supposed to be like. Anybody else get told that when you were growing up? Yeah, those were the Beatitudes. You be like that. And if I think that these were, these are good attributes for fathers, but it also be a good attitude for just about anybody, whether you are a father or not. Now, in terms of good fatherly attributes, I want to home in on Matthew 5:7-9, and it says, "Blessed are the merciful." The word that is translated in English as blessed that is blessed or blessed is a Greek word that's more closely translated happy. So you could say in some of the translations that we have, actually, maybe I'm not sure if our Tree of Life one does, but others will say, happy are the merciful. For certainly if we are blessed, we should be happy, don't you think? If you're blessed, you ought to be happy. I know some people that are blessed, they never seem to be happy, but that's all right. If you're blessed, and we all are here, I mean, if just the fact that you're born in the United States or you're living in the United States, that's a blessing, and you should be happy for that. You don't have to be happy about everything that's going on in the United States, but that's not something that you can actually take care of a lot of times. We just have to be happy and keep praying for our country. Now, keep the historical context in mind as you study this be attitude. The religious leadership in Yeshua's day tended toward being judgmental and merciless, and merciless, and because of their demand for rigorous observance of the law. The scribes and Pharisees did not receive God's mercy because they had become so self-satisfied with their own religious attainments that they could not sense their dangerous condition of total spiritual bankruptcy and their desperate need for God's rich mercy. That was one of the things that Yeshua used to get on to the Pharisees and the Sadducees about all the time, about, guys, you made so many rules that you can't follow them yourself. And if you can't follow them and you study this stuff all the time, how do you expect the guy, the mechanic down the street, the guy that works on those wagon wheels, how do you expect him to follow all of those rules? And when he wants to grab a snack, he reaches over and grabs his piece of bread. Okay, so his hands were dirty. So what? But you're telling him, no, that's a sin. And just all sorts of things that they came up with that was just terrible. And, there were a couple of schools of thought back in those days. You've all heard of the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel, all right? And Shammai was more of the strict, everything, by the book kind of a guy. And Hillel was more merciful, actually. And Yeshua's teaching reflected those teachings of Hillel. So, Yeshua was also a product of his time and his education. And he chose to be merciful rather than to be rigorous. That's a good thing for us to remember sometimes, too, that rigor can be destructive. Oftentimes, the father is called on to be the disciplinarian, the enforcer, the rod. You've probably heard the following phrase when you were growing up: just wait till your father gets home. Okay? Anybody never heard that before? Never heard that? I mean, all of us have heard that, and you knew that judgment was coming. And that whatever the infringement of the house rules that you had violated, you knew it was going to be a bad thing, all right? So discipline is needed in the home. The Bible speaks of it frequently in phrases like, spare the rod, spoil the child, that sort of thing. So this current foolishness that we have in the world today, that you shouldn't punish a child because you'll damage their self-esteem. Well, you got a whole state of people out there, a city full of people like that in Portland, Oregon right now. They call them Antifa, and it's people that never were disciplined. They're anarchists, they're lawbreakers when they grow up. And so, when we don't discipline our children and teach them what is proper in the home, then they get taught it in prison, is basically, or they get taught it if they survive. So a child, they say, don't punish me. He should be reasoned with. Well, reason is good. I disagree with that philosophy, as you know. The writer of Hebrews speaks of discipline, and that's in Hebrews 12, 5-6. He says, have you forgotten the warning addressed to you as sons? My son, do not take lightly the discipline of Adonai, or lose heart when you are corrected by him, because Adonai disciplines the one who he loves, and punishes every son he accepts. But, discipline is not just always, a beat down. It shouldn't be always a beat down. Discipline should be educational too, and lifting up. It should be tempered with mercy. Accidentally overturning a glass at dinner does not deserve a beating, okay? If it did, then I would be beat up all the time. In fact, if you were to find my Siddur at home on Erev Shabbat, the one that I use for Erev Shabbat, you would find that there are different wine stains on it, depending on whether it was a Cabernet or a Pinot Noir or whatever I was having that evening. Now, you won't find any Welch's grape juice on mine. But anyway, I've done that. We've all done that. An elbow here, I get started with my stories and telling this and that and the other, and next thing you know, Pat's wearing my wine. She won't drink it, but sometimes she wears it. So, I've done that several times. A father is merciful. He tempers discipline with mercy. A good father has a pure heart. People characterized as pure of heart are morally pure, honest, and sincere. They're people of integrity and single-minded commitment to God. Moral purity, honesty, and integrity come only through such a commitment, the commitment to God. In turn, people committed daily and totally to God will seek to be morally clean. If you're totally sold out to the Lord, then there's no room in there for filthiness. Because of their sincere devotion to Yeshua, they will see God here and now through the eyes of faith. And that's in Hebrews 11:27. And finally, we'll see him face to face, John 3 and 2. There are many things in today's world that would entice a man to go and stray from the righteous trail and the righteousness that Torah prescribes. You know what Torah really is? It's God's blueprint, God's standard for holiness. Now, the internet, of course, is a lure for many, many unsavory things, and I've known guys that will say that well, I have a problem with this. They recognize they have a problem with things on the internet, and so one guy went so far as to have his wife set up the password for him to get on his own internet, because he needed somebody to hold him accountable. And I've known guys that they'd go on road trips and stuff like that, and they would have friends that would hold them accountable for their activities. It's a shame, because our moral compass in the world today is so skewed that right is wrong and wrong is right. Some of these things that in our growing up we would have never even considered are now they're just commonplace and not even worth mentioning. And so this right and wrong and politically correct and all that kind of stuff, affairs outside the bonds of marriage are commonplace and not even questioned in many cases. It's just, so that's just the culture. The guy has a little friend on the side. That's just the culture. And I saw that a lot in other parts of the world where that was just accepted behavior, and it's not good behavior. And a good father has a pure heart. He is true to his word. He is true to his wife. And finally, as we do a circle back to Aaron, the high priest, I was trying to think of a way to say, as we return to, as we circle back to Aaron, the high priest, the father figure of Israel, he was a peacemaker. It said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Yeshua came as the Prince of Peace and gave the ultimate sacrifice to bring peace between God and humanity. God calls his children to be peacemakers. This involves action and not just passive compliance. Peacemakers do more than just live peaceful lives. They actively seek to make peace, to cause reconciliation, and to end bitterness and strife. This peace is not appeasement, but dealing with and solving problems to maintain peace. Okay, that point right there. Being a peacemaker does not mean that you just roll over every time something happens. That you say, oh, well, if I say something, you know, that, and growing up, we had two sides of the coin. One parent was says, you know, what is it? A harsh word just inflames people, and so you should never do. You just let it go. Be peaceful. And then I had another parent that said, pick up a baseball bat and take care of them. You know, and says you're never going to get rid of that bully unless you are a badder bully than him. You know. Now, and that was true. I mean, I can remember those times where, you know, we had a school bully, and he would he would bully people and so forth and so on until one day I'd had enough, and I caught him. He wasn't expecting it, and you know, a right hook and a left jab, and he was on the ground, and the next thing you know, I was pounding his head in the pavement until a teacher, and this is how small I was, the teacher just reached over, grabbed my belt, and just picked me up like that. 4th grade, 5th grade, something like that. She just picked me up. She says, that'll do, you know. And so I don't know if that's where they got it from, that cartoon, that'll do, donkey, you know. But, you know, that kid never bothered us again. And so that was a way of making peace. Sometimes you have to be proactive, and the way you make peace is to tell somebody that you're not going to put up with their foolishness anymore. Okay, I don't know why I said that. It's not in my notes, okay? I apologize. But sometimes you just have to do that. You just have to take care of business. And certainly if it's my kids, I'm not much of a peacemaker, you know. I'm not going to let somebody abuse my children, you know. And so we have to solve the problems to maintain peace. Arrogant, selfish people do not concern themselves with peacemaking. Peacemakers will be called children of God because they reflect the Father's character. He has a royal sense. They will share the glories of, this has a royal sense, that they will share the glories of the Messiah's kingdom. The peacemaking father is one who seeks to bring reconciliation between his children. That's important. He brings peace in the household between mother and children. He teaches his children to bring peace and not strife in their relationships. He is at peace with God and his own life. Now, we could spend a whole lot more time, and I don't even know what time it is. I'm just, we don't have a clock back there. And okay, for the record, it's 1 minute until 12. But we could spend a lot more time describing various attributes of a good father, but we can go with these three. A good father is merciful. He's pure of heart and mind. And he's a peaceful man. And is that right there, that's a good picture of a father. He is merciful, pure of heart, and he's a peacemaker. He tries to copy the Heavenly Father in all that he does.